So the one that we're spending a lot of time on, obviously, is technology and disruption, right? And I think it's worth digging into that a bit. But actually, it's a mistake to look at just it, because there are these other things going on which are affecting how we're responding to those technology trends and the impact they're going to have on labor markets, right? So one of them is disparity in wealth, right? So, and what I'm particularly worried about is regional differences, right? So what you see is that because of the disparities in terms of the amount of capital available, the amount of education that's available, the amount of infrastructure that's available, what occurs is successful regions get more successful at an accelerated rate and the rest don't catch up. So what you end up having is two labor markets, right? You have a labor market of those who are actually in the 21st century and those that are trying to catch up with it, and it gets worse, right? So the other one is there's huge variability in age, right? So the challenge of disruption in Germany, where the average age is 48.5, is completely different from the challenge of disruption in Central Africa, where the average age is 18, right? So, and then I think what clouds that a bit, and I'll come back to it in a different way, I think, is that the way we're responding to that is not all that helpful. So we're being more closed, we're being more nationalistic, we're being more identity based, and we don't trust the system. So the problem is that creates circumstances where the disjunctures that will happen because of disruption will be even more acute because the system can't respond because we don't trust it anymore, right? And so if you take those as context, they're all backdrop against which the speed at which technology is going to change work is going to accelerate year after year after year, and it's going to hit places that have never been hit. So it's going to hit our associates, it's going to hit how professors do research, it's going to hit doctors, it's going to hit people who it's never hit before, and they're not ready for it. Yeah, so let's look at disruption first, right? So there are 5 things I think are going to happen, right? First is business models will change, right? And so what happens is that businesses will fail faster. As businesses fail faster, the people who work for them are going to have a major transition problem, right? That will probably be slower in Latin America than in some other parts of the world, but it will accelerate, right? So second one is that there'll be massive movement across categories of work, and there'll be whole categories of work that just disappear, right? I think that's going to vary between city and sort of suburb, and city and village, right? So for Buenos Aires, that's going to happen fast. For the rest of it is going to be way slower, right? For Sao Paulo, it's going to happen fast. For the Amazon region, slower, right? And so you can't talk about one Latin America, actually, right? You're going to have to talk about, and then I think the 2 other pieces are important in it. One of them is the institutions that exist that try to help manage that. So you think about your Ministry of Labor, you think about the labor relations practices in Latin America, which have a particular style. They're not adapted to the world we're going to grapple with. So the good news is it'll be a little slower. It'll be concentrated in the cities that are more ready to adapt, but actually some of the institutional fabric isn't set up to deal with it, so it will be harder. So slower but harder, I think, is what I'd say in Latin America. So what I worry about most, right, and actually you see it at this conference, we're using the language of the 20th century and the political structures of the 20th century to deal with the problem which it wasn't designed to deal with, right? So all of the language of the ministries and the public institutions are based on an industrial model, right? That's not what we're going to have in the future, right? We're going to have a completely different model where labor actually will be about service, it'll be about experience, it'll be about making things work in context, it's not about production per se, because that's going to get done by inanimate objects, right? So the consequence is the public institutions in Latin America are way behind the transformation they need to make. Now here's the problem. They have to be successful in the moment, because if they're not, they won't have the authority to make the change. And to be successful in the moment, they're going to have to double down on the institutions that already exist. But they have to transform those institutions at the same time. God bless them. I mean, that's a really hard problem, right? And I think it's more acute here because I think the institutions are, in a sense, more of the industrial era, right? The benefit here, though, is in many parts of Latin America, including Argentina, for example, is you've actually emerged and are ready to rethink, where Europe, U.S. aren't, right? And so I think you have an opportunity, but you've got a lot of work to do. Education is the fundamental policy problem for adapting to the future of work, right? So it's the key role, I think. Here's the challenge, though. Those institutions themselves have to adapt, right? And so one of the problems is that, and it's got to be across the board. So we have to change the way we teach and people learn. We have to change our programs. We have to change the way we configure a school. And we have to change the relationship between a school and the community and society of which it's a part. That has to be done consistently, because if it doesn't happen, it won't work.